Yeah, g'day team. Roland here. Hope you're well. Hey, as you know, I punched out a bit of a note a couple of weeks ago or last week, talking about what we can do around innovating sports, and I'm trying to deep dive into some of the stuff that's been happening in New Zealand. And my good mate Joe Hitchcock from Badminton New Zealand likes the sound of his own song sheet, and so he's come up with a really cool development over the last 6 months. So I guess, Joe, just before we kind of jump into what's happened, you guys were going pretty well pre-COVID and things were running along nicely. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, thanks, Nick. We had a fantastic point of time in about January 2020. It was looking really good for us. We'd come off a really strong 2019. We'd seen really rapid growth in badminton across a number of our metrics. So increasing participation in secondary schools, record numbers in AIMS games, more and more Kiwi kids going through our shuttle time program. So nearly 50,000 Kiwi kids having a badminton racket in their hands.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so look, it was all trending up, and obviously we'd put a lot of time and effort into our successful international bids with the Badminton World Federation, and had secured the BWF World Junior Championships for 2020 and the World Senior Championships for 2025, and really looking forward to how we leverage those key international events with around 500 kids coming into New Zealand to enjoy Aotearoa and to have an awesome experience. And look, that was a big part of where we were heading. We were gearing up for 2020, and that all obviously changed in March.
That's right, pretty quickly. And so when was the juniors supposed to come? What sort of date were you looking at?
So originally in late September, early October. So that's school holidays in 2020. Expecting around 500 international competitors coming into New Zealand, and had a lot of interest and real excitement about the world coming to our backyard.
Oh man! And so, are they doing anything with that event now? Have they pushed it out, or is it still kind of up in the air?
So we responded pretty quickly, and we moved into January 2021.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not looking too flash either, really. And you look at the other events and where they're at and how they're positioned. So expect to have some more updates on that pretty soon.
Yeah, cool, nice. And so when COVID hit, where were you? Were you in New Zealand?
I was in New Zealand, yep. And I sort of feel like we had a little bit of COVID pre-warning, and I feel like we were lucky and fortunate to be ahead of the game. So the alarm bells started ringing for us in January, and we're very fortunate. We've got close connection and ties into China. And we had a number of international events scheduled for February through March.
Okay.
So as soon as it looked like there was a potential issue around Chinese badminton players being able to travel and being able to compete, that certainly started our thinking around what it would mean for us and how we would start to go down that road.
Oh, nice. Okay. And so tell us a little bit about what you did to adapt. So we all love the word pivot at the moment. I know everyone's talking about it, but I try and use adapt or innovate. So you obviously, that all started happening in February, March. You then went, oh, okay, well, maybe the juniors aren't going to happen. So where did you go to from there? Did you kind of call the crew together and have a brainstorm, or where did you head?
Yeah, look, it was a weird sort of time. So we had to cancel out a international event 5 days prior to start. We had our annual general meeting scheduled to bring all our regions into Auckland into March as well, just before the COVID alert levels came out and those pieces.
Okay.
So it was a real scramble, and it was make it up as you go along. And I think everyone in the sector was sort of looking around and saying, well, "What are you guys doing? What are we doing? How what's the right answer?" And I think we finally got a moment of clarity when we figured out that there wasn't a right answer. You just had to make the best decision on the information that that you had, and think it through, and then go with it. But we had staff. We had one staff member in Australia. We obviously had a number of athletes competing internationally. So it was certainly sort of came back to how you figure out your processes and how you communicate and connect with your stakeholders, and how you can pretty quickly determine what needs to be done, so you can activate pretty quickly.
Yeah, nice. Okay, awesome. And so then once you kind of had everything all sorted in a way, I suppose you got the competitors back, you got your staff member back, you kind of let the information flow through the network of badminton around the country, and then you went, okay, well this is obviously going to be a little while here. What are we going to do? Is that right?
Yeah. So I was like, you put out all the fires, all the little fires, and then you look up and you're looking at the massive forest fire, and you're thinking, Jesus, you need to call in some air support or some other pieces in and around that. But look, it was a really scary sort of time, and I think a lot of people didn't know what was going on. And then when we went into lockdown, the alert levels really helped us, because key thing that we were trying to do was provide information to the badminton community as well, all our regional stakeholders and our players and all those pieces. And once we went into lockdown and we had some clarity around what that meant for our community, it gave us a chance to sort of look up and then sort of say, right, well, we're obviously going to be in New Zealand for a while. International events obviously aren't going to be happening for a while. And again, for us, it was a change of focus, and to say, well, let's not think about it as in terms of things that we can't do. Let's think about it of things that we now can do, understanding the opportunities that come through for it. And two key things really stood out for us. Three. One was all our international players, all our high performance players were in New Zealand, which is very uncommon for us. So they usually out playing in Asia and Europe. Yeah. Two, we had a completely clear calendar for the first time in my 6 years at Badminton. So there was no scheduling conflicts. Yeah. And three, we really felt like we had a competitive advantage because we were a non-contact sport, and you could have social distancing, and we could be relatively agile and get a product to market pretty quick.
Nice. Okay. And so you developed the now correct me if I'm wrong, New Zealand Badminton League, was it?
The Learn Coach New Zealand Badminton League.
Coach New Zealand Badminton League. Sorry, I should be saying this. So the Learn Coach New Zealand Badminton League. And so how quickly did you get that up and running?
Yeah, so we were really lucky. We had the concept in April. So we went into lockdown in March. We had a bit of a brainstorm in April. We went out to our performance group of players in April and floated the idea, had a huge amount of positive feedback, basically designed what it would look like and put a scope out and tried to pitch it to potential partners and sponsors. We're really fortunate that at the end of April we signed, I think, 5 or 6 new corporate partners to be able to make it happen. Yeah, which was like, I remember sitting there doing it, and for the last 4 or 5 years, in terms of trying to sell the value of badminton, and a sponsorship proposal is very, very difficult. As anyone in sport knows, it's months and months of work. We managed to turn around that sort of stuff in 2 or 3 weeks. Awesome. Yeah, and then by May we were putting the final touches of it. And really, the funny thing was we had to wait and give the athletes a period of time to get back on court and to be match ready. And then we started in June and rolled out a beautiful little 7-week innovative league that happened in that really lovely Alert Level 1 cycle before it all turned to custard again.
I was going to say, you've timed it perfectly. I think there's a couple of sports that did really well. I mean, basketball was another one that did really well over that period. They just timed it perfectly in that 100-day run. It was great timing. And so the league was was it quite different to what you would normally do, or is it, kind of what was the innovation behind it? How did you create something a little bit different?
Yeah, it was really different, and that was the most exciting part of it. So again, you look at the opportunities that COVID provides, and COVID's a great excuse for throwing all the rules out. You can just, you've got an ultimate excuse to try anything, and it doesn't really matter if it fails because you can always just blame COVID. Well, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
So and again, I think a lot of sport is very traditionally structured. So you're operating within structures of your world federation or your national system, and how it's been done for so many years. So with the league, we really wanted to address a couple of things. One was obviously getting our players on court, but two, we wanted to provide a really interesting fan experience that was different from what they had. And badminton is quite long, and I think what we really wanted to do was to jumble a few different concepts around what works in the NBA, what works in professional wrestling, what works in 2020 cricket, and sort of mash them together and make a bit of a badminton hybrid. So we changed the scoring system. We brought in a golden game. We had a decent level of prize money for our players. We had timeouts, which is all very different things for the badminton fan and community to understand.
And so were you, is it singles, doubles? Is it a mixture?
Yeah, so it's a 6-match format. So we play one of each discipline. So men's singles, women's singles, men's doubles, women's doubles mixed, and then a sixth mix. So there's 6 matches. You have to win 4 matches to win the overall match or the tie. Yeah. And it's really exciting. If it gets to 3-3 at the end of the tie, then you go into a golden game, and then the coaches then come on court, and there's a process of elimination to choose what discipline you'll play with that golden game. Yeah. And then it's just first to 11, winner takes all. And
that's very different. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it creates a massive amount of pressure, which is equal to excitement for those fans as well. But changing the scoring system from 3 sets to 21 or 3 games to 21 to 3 games to 11 was amazing as well. It enabled us to have 6 matches within sort of a 2-hour time slot.
Yeah, that's
whereas normally, if you went and watched a final day of badminton, it's about 6 or 7 hours. So it's a lot like Test match rugby, Test match cricket versus 2020 cricket.
Oh, that's amazing. And so did you? You obviously had some broadcast going with it. You probably had a window where you could have a few fans coming in and things like that.
Yeah, so when we initially designed in April, we were designing for level 3. So it was absolutely, we reckon we could deliver the league with 35 people in the building. And then things just kept getting better and better, which was great and made it easier and easier. But again, we're really fortunate to be part of the New Zealand Sport Collective and work with Rob Waddell and their team. And that really gave us an ability to build our live stream and broadcast capabilities. So we were stoked. Through that partnership, we've been able to get to a level of capability where we actually did the broadcast in-house. So it's our team, our events team pivoted, if I can use a fancy term, to instead of being event deliverers to being broadcast personnel. So we were behind the camera. We were, putting the product together and really delivering it from end to end.
Oh, that's amazing! Well done. And the stats you were getting back were really good. The people have loved it.
Yeah, so we're favorably because we're on Sky Sport Next, so on a YouTube platform and also on Sky Sport 9. But we were stoked. We really, for the first run of the league, which was something quite different, quite new, the average viewership was well above some of the other more prominent sports. So if you look, I don't want to name sports, but if you go on and you have a look at the YouTube stats, you'll see that badminton is at the top for that piece. Yeah, and I think it really reflects that there is a changing demographic in New Zealand, and they're eager to access some content that sort of meets their needs, and we fit that bill.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well done. And so, obviously, taking everything to account, that you've done over the last 6 months or since COVID hit in March, what have been some of your kind of biggest learnings?
I think it's a great question. It's a hard one. I think
because we're still learning.
yeah, exactly. We're still learning and we're still figuring it out. And we still continue just to make things up as we go along. And that's, I think you've got to find a level of comfort in that. And you've got to be willing to put it out there and make some mistakes as well. And we made lots of mistakes along the way in the league, and it was a really good success for us. But there's a huge amount that we will do differently as we continue to roll out and go on. But I think probably the biggest thing is just to challenge your own thinking in terms of why we always done something the way it has been, and what really are the barriers to trying something new and to doing something new. And I think, if anything, COVID's given us the confidence, I think, to push ourselves out there and say, right, well, this is a chance. Let's grab it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we like to hear, because as you say, you are kind of bound by rules from global bodies, and it flows all the way down, and that's apparent through all sorts of different sports. So having the opportunity like you do now to do something for you and do something a little bit different that doesn't have to be bound by the rules and regulations globally, although you still obviously want to keep it safe, and health and safety is obviously front of mind and all that sort of thing, but outside of that you can adapt and do things a little bit differently.
I think you made a really good point. To do things for yourselves as well. So I think the league reflects what we've internally wanted to do as an organisation for a long time. So sometimes it's about trusting what you know as well. Could be great for your sport and backing yourself.
Yeah, cool. And so it's sticking around? The league's going to stick around?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done some great market research in terms of working with the fans through, and had an amazing response. I think we had over 100 feedback replies to our online poll within an hour last week when we put that out. And one of the largest complaints or concerns around the league was that it wasn't long enough, or that it was finished.
Amazing.
And I can tell you from our point of view, in terms of delivering it, it was perfect length.
Yeah, that's
right. How we would handle a longer season, but no, definitely. So we're just now trying to figure out which windows we could slot. Right? Yeah, we could slot that in. But the response from our corporate partners and from the sponsors that have come on board and engaged through the league has been amazing. We had a fantastic turnout in the last night for the grand final. We had over 100 VIPs, sponsors and stakeholders courtside. And they had an amazing time. And I think they're certainly going to want to see it back relatively quickly. And I know our athletes really enjoyed the experience and can't wait to get back on court as well.
That's good. Yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask, because you do need the athletes to buy into something like this, because they can be international pretty quickly if they need to for different events. But I mean, obviously, thinking about next year, you're probably relatively okay. It'll be pretty minimal, I would suggest, international events for the next 18 months at least. It just depends on when things start ramping up. Have you had any response or any indications from the global body? Have you talked to them about what you've done and how you've adapted?
Yeah, look, we've got a great relationship with the Badminton World Federation, and it's quite interesting because they made a push last year to try and change the scoring system as well. So we've played a 3 to 11. They were proposing a 5 to 11 scoring format. So I think they were quite interested in terms of how it would play out, how competitive it would be, where the levels would be, and how long matches would sort of take, and how many pressure points it would pull together. I think they've got so many things on their plate now that they're juggling and they're trying to think about and trying to work through. But also, they provided some amazing advice and resource around delivering events in a COVID situation. So we felt like we had some really good information to fall back on if we started delivering into an environment where COVID and community transmission was still in place.
Yeah, nice. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, it's well done. So it's good that they've had an eye on it as well. And good that you're working with them, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. Cool. Well, thank you for that. That's awesome. It's really cool to hear different sports out there doing different things. I think what you guys have achieved over the last few years has been amazing, and this is just adding to that, I guess, portfolio of products and opportunities you have on the table. So I think, for badminton, it's a very different community than your traditional Kiwi sport community, I suppose. But it is the changing demographic of the country. So what you guys have achieved is really, really cool. So I'm looking forward. I didn't actually see it this year. I was too consumed with everything else going on in my life. But I'm definitely keen to watch out for it next time and be a part of it.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks a lot for your time, Joe, and look forward to catching up soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
No worries. Cheers, team.